Hey surf anglers, it's Bill Varney from Your Saltwater Guide and FishTheSurf.com with your Thursday, July 17th surf fishing report. So once again this week, wow, we have a really robust report. It's amazing. We're going to be on here for hours. There's such good fishing up and down the coast. Let's first start up in Santa Barbara. So once again up in the Santa Barbara area, and really it's been reported all along the coast, all the way down into San Diego. There's been a lot of kelp and eelgrass in the water, and it has come and gone with the wind and with the swells and so forth. So a lot of anglers are still dealing with that. But up in Santa Barbara, we had some really big changes this week, which are really great. And one thing to remember, just as a real quick tip about fishing in that kelp, is a lot of times fishing low tide to high tide will keep a lot of that kelp off your line because it's on the beach behind you. And as that tide comes up, those surf fish will continually surf those waves and come farther up the beach to right where you're fishing. So when you go to an area that has a lot of kelp, a lot of eelgrass, try fishing there at a lower tide going to a high tide. That'll keep some of that kelp off your line for sure. So the big news up there in Santa Barbara was last week's Grunion run. It was absolutely insane. Summerland, East Beach, Ledbetter Beach, Hope Ranch, Goleta Beach, all of those places saw Grunion in really, really big numbers, the biggest numbers they've seen all year. And of course, when we think about the Grunion run last week that happened, down south much slower. A lot of those Grunion have already spawned, of course, and then up north the numbers are greater and greater as we go north. So that's exactly what we see in a normal year of Grunion runs, and that's really good news. So that was really the highlight. And what anglers saw at those nights was they saw plenty of 10 to 15 pound white sea bass swimming through back and forth, eating those Grunion. And they also at night saw a lot of halibut boiling on the surface. It was crazy. So anglers up in that area using things like white flukes, white and silver weedless flukes in there, because of course they're going weedless with all that stuff in the water, and then hard baits like Lucky Craft and Battle Stars. Had luck with white sea bass up to 30 inches, although there were quite a few bigger fish that were seen. Those weren't biting exactly. And nothing that was interesting is as soon as that Grunion run was over, all those fish cleared out of those areas. People went back the next day to fish them, and it was very slow there. But anyway, some big white sea bass were seen, and then also some nice halibut in that 26 to 29 inch range, and those were on the Battle Star and the Lucky Craft. Those were also caught up on Henry's Beach, East Beach, Ledbetter, and then up there toward the Goleta Pier. So all of that area really turned on last week with that Grunion run. Of course, we have an upcoming Grunion run coming up this next week. I think we're going to see those fish up in Santa Barbara turn back on again. Another thing up in Santa Barbara is they've seen a lot of Corbina in the surf. They've really been all over, but they haven't been biting much. And I think one of the big reasons for that, and of course people up there, anglers have been telling me this too, there's so many sand crab everywhere. I mean, they're really everywhere from the Mexican border north, but there's so many sand crab on the beach right now that it's really hard to take a crab with a hook in it and get a bite by one of these Corbina. As the summer goes on, really over the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, those numbers will slow down on those sand crabs. And the other thing we're going to see about that is that Corbina in particular, who have been gorging on these sand crabs for about 3 months now, and really have been moving from the south up toward the north, following the sand crabs. They'll get kind of sick and tired of those sand crabs, and anglers over the next, I'm going to say 2 or 3 weeks beginning, using bloodworms, lugworms, and ghost shrimp, will really do a number on those Corbina up in Santa Barbara. Remember, in Santa Barbara, in our fall time, September and October, is when we see the biggest number and the largest Corbina up on the coast, up in that Carpinteria area. So keep your eye on that. Santa Barbara fishing continues to get good, and please don't be too discouraged by the kelp and the eelgrass in the water. Just try to find a cleaner area, and then also fish these weedless setups if you can. As we make our way down to Ventura, that Ventura Oxnard area continues to be amazing for Corbina. There are Corbina all over there. Anglers are getting them on soft shell sand crabs, either 1 dime size or quarter size sand crab, or 2 or 3 smaller ones on the hook. And then also fly anglers fishing the sand crab fly and the clouser minnow have had really good luck in the surf there. When you get down to areas where you have rock structure in Ventura and Oxnard, jetties, harbor entrances, pier pilings, all of those kind of areas where rocks are just offshore. There's been quite a few spotfin croaker and halibut caught in those areas. And the best bait lately on those spotfin, although there's been some on sand crabs, have been both lug and bloodworms have worked really, really well. I think we'll see more of those spotfin in the month of August and into September on things like mussel and even clams as we get later into the fall. But right now, really those lug and bloodworms have worked really well down there, and they've been associating near rock structure areas, just like we find with halibut. Halibut fishing has been there with a fish a little bit over 30 inches caught this week along the Ventura coast near the jetties there, and that was caught on a Battlestar bait. So those hard baits like Lucky Craft, Battlestar baits, those are working really well in the surf for halibut. It really doesn't matter if you're up above Santa Barbara all the way down to San Diego. Those baits work great for halibut in the surf. Just be prepared to make a lot of cast before you get the right bite. So Ventura continues to be good. I think that will continue. I think we're going to continue to see a really good bite on Corbina there. And then as we just talked about a minute ago, as our season goes on, we get into fall here, there's going to be some really big Corbina along that central northern coast area in our zone here. And then as we make our way down to Malibu, we've got some great reports from Broad Beach all the way up to Point Magoo in Malibu. Quite a few calico bass. A lot of perch, tons of perch in that area. Quite a few sharks people are fishing for there. And then there's been an occasional halibut here and there in the bite in that Malibu area. Anglers have been using things like strip and cut squid, ghost shrimp, and then the worms, the bloodworms and the lugworms. Those have all worked really well in that area. Particularly good up there right now for perch fishing. So it's really good to get some more reports from there. I hope they continue to come in from you folks in Malibu. And then when we make our way down to the South Bay, of course, that zone from Marina del Rey all the way down to the Redondo Harbor, King Harbor, has had fantastic Corbina fishing. There's perch there, there's yellowfin croaker there, there's a striper now and then there, but the Corbina fishing has been really good. One angler a couple days ago reported to me that him and his buddies got 11 Corbina in one day in Hermosa Beach. One of them was 25 inches. He went on a 20-minute fight with that fish on 4-pound test before he got it finally into the shore and then released it back into the surf. So fishing in the South Bay continues to be good, and I don't think that'll change whatsoever. A lot of the anglers are using soft shell sand crabs. But once again, over the next few weeks, look for a transition from those sand crabs to things like bloodworms and ghost shrimp too. Those will all work down in the South Bay. And then I don't want anybody to forget that, that Redondo to Rat Beach right after Torrance, that Torrance Redondo Beach zone, it's been good for yellowfin croaker for about 2 years now. That continues. But the big news down there was a 30-inch striper caught on a hard bait down at Rat Beach. And I want to remind everybody again that corner where Palos Verdes meets Torrance Beach, or what we call Rat Beach, right after Torrance, a very small, short, unincorporated area there. That corner concentrates stripers over the summer into the fall. If you're looking for a striper and you live in the South Bay, concentrate on that area right where rocks meet sand there. There's some kelp in that area too, so you'll have to deal with that. But all in all, that's a really good striper spot, and they normally show up there in early spring and in late summer, so keep that in mind. And then as we make our way down to Orange County, wow, that South LA County zone, that Long Beach zone from the Belmont Pier, really Cherry Beach, all the way down to 72nd Street. That has kicked out a large number of sub-legal halibut in the last week or so. With the biggest fish we heard about, a 30-inch halibut that was caught and released. A beautiful, beautiful fish. And that fish was caught on a drop shot rig, once again using a very light color, olive color, silver color, white color fluke. Those fluke and that fluke setup on the drop shot continues to work all up and down the coast. If I was fishing halibut, I'd probably be fishing Lucky Craft, Battlestar, flukes, and then if I had a swim bait I was fishing, something with a very light colored belly, silver, white belly, something like that. That seems to be what's doing the job in the surf there for sure. And then as we make our way down anywhere between Seal Beach and Sunset Beach, it's been really good for perch fishing, yellowfin croaker fishing, There's been a lot of Corbina in that zone. Fish have been smaller in that zone. We had a bigger one last week. It caught around Seal Beach, near the Seal Beach Pier. But that zone of Surfside all the way down into the Bolsa Chica area, it's been a lot of Corbina there, but they've been in that about 18-inch, 12 to 18-inch range, which is really what we see kind of at the beginning of the summer here, and those will grow. There'll be bigger ones that come in closer to shore as we get a little bit farther down the line here in the summer. So that continues to be good, and really the Huntington Cliffs all the way to the Newport jetties have been kicking out quite a few Corbina in that zone, and once again on soft shell sand crabs. Been particularly good by the jetties in Newport and then right off the cliffs there in Huntington Beach. So that continues to be good. And then the other news is that at night, we've got have these Grunion runs that happened last week. There was a 30-plus inch striper caught right near the Santa Ana River mouth. This is not unusual at all. So if you're fishing at night, there's been a lot of striper caught in the last 3 months at night, a tremendous number of them. If I was in Orange County, I would be concentrating on the Bolsa Chica outlet and inlet, the Talbert inlet and outlet, and the Santa Ana River inlet and outlet. Not only will Grunion concentrate in those areas when you have a Grunion run, but in addition to that, that's where the stripers love to feed. They will not only feed in the ocean, but many of them will swim up the Santa Ana River, for example, and feed up the river itself. So fishing at night, look at those areas to concentrate on in Orange County. And then as we make our way farther south down to San Onofre, you know, we've talked about that Dana Harbor all the way to San Onofre zone that was kicking out the spotfin croaker. Once again this week they kicked out the spotfin croaker, the black croaker, and there's been a tremendous number of perch up to 13 inches, caught in that area. And the anglers have been concentrating on ghost shrimp and lug and bloodworms. Those seem to be the best baits that have been working there. Once again, some have been caught on these soft shell sand crabs, but they're so numerous it's kind of hard to compete against, and that's why anglers have moved on to some different baits and really found luck with those. So try some different baits. When you go to the beach, if you can carry 2 or 3 different live baits with you, maybe mussel, clams, sand crabs, ghost shrimp, lugworms, bloodworms, any of these things as a group. If one doesn't work, hook on the other one. Try different baits. You'll really be amazed sometimes where nothing's getting bit at all, and then you throw a different bait out there and you can't keep them off the hook. So carry several baits with you if you can. And once again, that San Onofre area from trails all the way up to the surf area below trestles has been good over the past week. I think that'll continue to be good. And then when we make our way into San Diego, wow, there's a lot to talk about down in San Diego. There's been quite a bit of eelgrass and kelp down there, as we found up in Santa Barbara and in Ventura too. That's not unusual for this time of year. It is harder to find clean areas to fish, but anglers along that stretch who found clean areas, really from Carlsbad all the way down to the Ponto Jetty, have had unbelievable Corbina fishing. Most of those Corbina have been caught on sand crabs, although once again the lugworms and bloodworms and ghost shrimp really come into play this time of year. So that continues to be good in that whole zone down there. And then we make our way to Torrey Pines. Torrey Pines was really good last week with yellowfin croaker, spotfin croaker. There are a bunch of small halibut caught there. Once again on the soft shell sand crabs, and the worms have been really good down in that area. Of course, Pacific Coast Bait and Tackle down there in San Diego is a great place for you guys to go and pick up bait there, just like up in Santa Barbara, going to hook, line, and sinker on Los Positos Road. A great place to get information and to get bait to use at the beach. So San Diego remains good. Probably 2 of the best beaches over the last really couple months down there have been Mission Beach and Pacific Beach. They've not only been kicking out spotfin croaker, yellowfin croaker, perch down there, but a 30-plus inch striper was caught down at Mission Beach this week. And then at Pacific Beach, a 22-inch calico bass was caught during the Grunion run at night down there too. So really, it seems like everything along the coast has been biting in the last week or two, and really over the last month and a half. It's been really fantastic down there. Well, a couple things I want to update everybody on. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. You'll find it on the front page of fishthesurf.com. Just put in your email address. That's all we need. You'll get our monthly surf fishing letter and then a reminder every week about our video surf fishing report. The next Grunion run is coming up on the 24th through the 27th. So remember, we're in the take period again. We found, as we've found many years in the past, that they're kind of slowing down in the south and then they're really picking up in the north. So LA County to Santa Barbara has more Grunion certainly than Orange County and San Diego County has now. But if you want to collect some, now's the time to collect them. You can collect 30 per person. I just put them in a Ziploc bag, take them home, and then lay them out flat so that they freeze. I freeze them all so that they freeze straight. And when I put them on the hook, I fish them frozen and straight on the Carolina rig, and then just slowly bring them into shore. This is the time to get them because we've got about one more month or so of Grunion runs, and as we get to the end here, they'll be harder and harder to find, and they won't come in on as many beaches as are coming in right now. So don't forget about that. If you need surf fishing tackle, check out surffishtackle.com. That's my surf fishing tackle store. It's got everything. I carry everything in there that I use on the beach every day. I don't carry any tackle in there that doesn't work or that I don't use. And then last but not least, I want to give you a tip on sand crabs, and something that I've seen over the years, and certainly this year for sure, I've seen a lot of this. When you go to the beach, you want to look for what occurs naturally in the area where you're fishing. That's what fish are eating. So if you go to an area and it has mussels on the rocks and sand crabs in the sand, that's what they're eating. Surf fish got big by being smart. They didn't get big by being dumb and just eat anything that came by them. A 20-inch Corbina is probably about 15 years old. So it got that size and that age by being smart. So when all the sand crabs in the sand are about the size of the dime and you find a sand crab that's the size of your thumb, even though we think that a big bait will catch a big fish, most fish will concentrate on what occurs naturally in their area. So if most of the sand crabs are a dime, use dime-sized sand crabs. Also, when you go to beaches where the sand crabs are really small, especially early in the season, where they're maybe the size of your little fingernail, feel free to use 2, 3, 4 of those on a hook at once. And when you hook them on the hook, be sure to have it where they're back to feet, back to feet, back to feet, like they're piggybacking. That's how they look when they're spawning. That's their natural look, rather than feet to feet or back to back. Be sure to hook them correctly, and when they're out in the surf, they'll look like they're spawning, and that's what will attract fish to them. All kinds of fish are caught on those sand crabs, like that are a group of sand crabs on the hook, and I've seen everything from 25-inch Corbina to 30-inch halibut caught on those. So use what occurs naturally in the sand or the rocks around you. You'll have much better luck at the beach. So thanks for watching the fishing report today, and until next week when I see you right here, good luck at the beach.